All right. That's live. Well, it's live for the people who are joining us live. It's recorded for the people who are listening to us after we recorded it. So we're going to allow for about 30 seconds for people to continue to join in so they don't miss any of the awesomeness that we're about to lay down for you. And in those 30 seconds, let me just take a moment to congratulate everyone who is here because you have curiosity about creativity. And curiosity is actually one of the component skills of creativity. So you're already well on your way to being creative. All right, just a few more seconds here before we really jump in. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. We're excited to talk with you today about boosting creativity and innovation in business teams to allow you to reach beyond the possible because, darn it, your future depends on it. So here we go. First, an amazing statistic. There are, at least according to Get to Growth, 305 million startups on the planet today. And that is either individuals or groups of people who are starting their own businesses to bring new solutions, new services, new products into market. And that is a staggering statistic of things that are taking place on planet Earth. What is driving this? So we have exponential growth, which is driven by unprecedented access, which we're given primarily through the internet, to production capabilities, to capital, to talent, to knowledge, to all kinds of things, and audience. An example of reaching audience would be what we're doing here today. And then combine that with human creativity, and you get a massive wave of disruption and opportunity. And inside a circumstance like that, an economic wave of disruption, uncertainty, etc., it is our position, Brian and I believe this deeply, that disruption is, in fact, the number one business strategy. I think we often say either be disruptive or get disrupted. Oh, snap. Okay. So let's kind of go through the business case of driving creativity, improving creative capacities in your business teams. For those who are all about the numbers, and is there like really hard ROI associated with this? Looks like StreamYard has taken liberties with some of my margins here, but nevertheless, you can still see what's going on here. So 50% more market share for companies that embrace creativity. These numbers are from Forrester. Creativity boosting the bottom line. 82% of companies believe there's a strong connection between creativity and bottom line business results. 3.5 times more likely to be a company that is achieving 10% plus growth year after year if you are investing in creativity. And creativity, 69% of companies ranked highly for creativity have received Best Place to Work awards. And we'll actually be able to explain why that might be a little bit later on. This one I thought was actually very interesting from the World Economic Forum. From the year 2015 to the year 2020, creativity as a skill, as an important skill for business success globally, has moved significantly from the 10th position on their list up to the 3rd position on their list, right? So creativity making massive strides in importance as a critical skill for business success in the world today. Now, why? So the answer to why on this really comes down to creativity being a skill that can improve outcomes in so many different areas of business. And what we see for companies that have aggressively applied creativity in their organizations is that they find improved problem solving, increased productivity, increased shareholder value, increased revenue, and increased protection from outside disruption, which is what we were talking about earlier with disruption.
Yeah, maybe I could add
being the main business. Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, this point that Colt is mentioning about improved protection from outside disruption. The whole theory of disruptive innovation was from Clayton Christensen a few years back. And as a key point to mention here is that incumbent companies in most business sectors tend to maintain their dominance through incremental innovation. However, when you look at new entrants, new companies coming into the same business sector, they tend to excel because they're really promoting what we could call radical creativity. And this is why disruption is so important today, because along with these 305 million startups, if you look at the numbers, there's over 76,000 per year opening up in the US alone. And so what this means, of course, is that creativity is the key to being disruptive in your business sector.
Right on. Thank you, Brian. I got on a bit of a roll there. I recognize this is actually a slide that we had designated for you. I apologize. This is why people don't let me drink coffee. Okay, so having an understanding of the benefits that creativity brings to an organization, the question naturally arises, well, through what mechanism? How is it that creativity is getting applied such that these results are appearing for businesses? And the answer to that question really is, well, in basically every function of business. These are examples of areas of business that we see benefiting from the application of creativity. This is actually a really small slice of the full list. You can add to this very easily. You could add to this transportation. You could add training. You could add compensation and benefits packages, betas and pilots, funding strategies, market positioning, waste management, resource. I mean, it's like there is not, in my opinion, in Brian's opinion, in our opinion, there is not a function of business that cannot benefit from increasing the creative capacities of the team members involved with that function. I mean, just bottom line, that's a core belief coming from us. And I think it has been demonstrated time and again in the organizations that we've worked with. Okay, so now we know that there is a massive benefit to applying creativity in business. We understand what the benefits are, how they work, and what are the business functions that can benefit from creativity. Wow, let's get to it, right? Well, sure, but still today, even with all the data that's coming from Forrester, that's coming from the World Economic Forum, even today in that environment, the creative strategy that most businesses are undertaking is, well, we sure hope we bump into some creativity along the way. And I think this is largely because most business leaders don't really have a sense that creativity is something that they can take control over, meaning you can effectively, actively, meaningfully increase the creative capabilities of your business teams, and you can leverage those increased capabilities in standard business processes. So that's exactly the RAD Creatives process. We're going to give you guys a look at how all this works so you can take this back to your own companies, hopefully make a significant impact just with what we're going to share with you over the next few minutes here. 3 phases: understanding creativity, what it is, how it works, what's the actual neuroscience that's taking place to make creativity happen in people that you regard as creative that could absolutely be happening in anyone, anywhere. Number 2, how can business teams increase their creative capacities with regular practice and exercises? And then number 3, how do we apply those capacities into standard business processes? Those are the 3 steps. We're going to break them down for you. I'm going to toss this over to Brian to walk us through phase 1, theory, understanding creativity. Brian, what do you have for us?
You bet. Well, the RAD model, we've isolated or developed 6 stages, and we're going to take you through each of these and then unpack the whole thing so that you can get a really good understanding of what creativity is. So moving to the next slide, what you can see here is that there are 2 main domains here. One is accessing the creative mind, which is what we do in our waking consciousness. But then there's accessing the creative unconscious. Now, our expertise is in cognitive science and neuroscience, and we basically trawled all of the research over a number of years to unpack what this actually means. And you can see these 6 important stages, from preparation through emotion, incubation, etc., inspiration, ideation, and implementation. Now, a key thing to understand here is that these 6 stages can happen very quickly. They can happen in a matter of minutes or a matter of hours, but most importantly, they can also happen within the circadian or 24-hour cycle. And just focusing on one key area here of incubation. What happens when we're in dream sleep, or what's known as REM, or rapid eye movement sleep during dreaming, what's happening in the brain is the neural connectivity and what the brain is doing through basically 10 billion neurons in the upper brain alone, in the neocortex. What it's doing is downloading and processing all the data we've taken in during the day. And it's making these connectivities, and then that fuels the dream process. And that dream process can actually lead to major inspiration and ideation. And we've all heard the expression, I think I'll sleep on it, right? So this is actually happening in the neocortex of the brain. And one key thing about this is that incubation is the major driver of ideation and inspiration. And at RAD, we have a number of techniques actually where we can empower and impact the dream state. But we're coming to that a little later. So let's move to the next slide. And what you'll see here is some of the detail. And we won't go into this in great depth now, but we will unpack some of it as we go through the presentation. So the preparation stage is very important. This is really setting up the brain in order to be creative. And that often means that we need to understand what is the issue or problem that we're facing, set some criteria. What are we looking at? We do data gathering, we do research. And then we get to the important piece of emotion. And emotion is extremely powerful. Why we call it the power of passion. Because what emotion does, it engages the limbic system of the brain, and that directly impacts all our cognitive functions. And so, for example, often when we're working on a problem or an issue, we might get some temporary sense of frustration. Now, most people don't enjoy that state. However, what we know from neuroscience is the state of frustration, that itself, that charge, that emotional charge, opens up the cognitive capacity of our neurochemistry. And it's that that fuels not only incubation, but inspiration and ideation. So each of these stages is very super important. And so we'll take a look at those as we go through, but we're going to give you some understanding beyond that into how we can actually increase our creative capacities. So let's just move on to the next slide. And by the way, you can have this deck when you get in touch with us. We'll send you this deck so you can see the detail.
Yeah, before we move to the next one, I just wanted to toss in my own comment on this, how significant it was in my own life to be exposed to this mechanism, right? The actual pattern process of how creativity works, meaning how it is that the brain comes up with ideas that surface from the unconscious into your conscious awareness is actually a reliable mechanism. And once this sort of mystery layer of creativity was unwrapped, revealed, really, I could see that this is something that, once I understand it, now I have the ability to leverage it instead of just, hope to the wind. I hope an idea shows up at some point. Once I have an understanding of this mechanism, then I can start to see that I can make conscious application of this mechanism in my personal life, my professional life, my artistic life. I mean, that was a major step for me in understanding the value and power of creativity. So what we want to talk about, moving from stage one now towards stage two. Stage one is understanding, just unwrapping that mystery of creativity from it being this, some people are born with it, I guess, to actually a thing that you can take command over and mastery over. The next thing is really to build up the creative capacities of your business teams. And you can do this on a personal level as well. So we look at this by breaking down the individual components of what creativity really is. If you look at the component strengths or capacities that roll up under this master heading of creativity, these are the things that we're really talking about. I'm not going to read through this, but you could see what they are. People who have great strengths in each of these areas are the ones that we regard as more highly creative. You could probably kind of make your own mental connections as to why that would be the case. But just understanding what the component strengths of a very creative person are is really like step one in the ability to improve your creative capacities. Step two is, well, what are the exercises? And there's a reason why we have this sort of gym motif going on in the background of this slide. What are the exercises that we can use personally to increase our component creative strengths? Well, there's I don't know, something like 10,000 of them. And we've listed just a handful of the ones that we like best, with so many great sources to get creativity building exercises out there on the internet. The Rad Creative has sort of our subset that are our favorite, the ones that we enjoy the most, have the most fun with. And like I said, take a screenshot of this. Easy to Google these exercises. They're all a lot of fun, and they all are super effective at building your creative capacities in either one or a multitude of those strengths that we had listed on the prior slides. I want to tell you about one of my absolute favorites. So this is a great exercise. It's called the blind contour. I'll break this down for you. Something actually before that, this is interesting. When you ask young people, like elementary aged students, to undertake an exercise where they partner up and draw each other, they're happy to do it. They take on that exercise. They're enthusiastic about the process. They're happy to share their results, and it's a fun experience. If you're in a room of adults, like in a conference setting, and first of all, you just say the words, okay, turn to your neighbor, utter terror fills the room because no one wants to be engaged with somebody in this way. But you can take that terror even further by suggesting something like, okay, we're going to draw our neighbor. Like instant back sweat for me when somebody says that. And what you find in a room of adults is, before you undertake that exercise, everybody's apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm a terrible artist. This is going to be the worst. You don't look this bad. I mean, there's just this avalanche of apology and judgment that happens before the pen even touches the paper. And this is really the point of this exercise. So the way that this works is we're going to have an experience of drawing our neighbor, but in a very specific way. And when we use the specifics of this exercise, the benefits that we're going to get are overcoming that resistance, overcoming that internal judgment, right? Engaging our brain in multiple ways, and then risk-taking. And all we need is a pen and paper and then a partner to do this with. So what is involved? Blind contour is a very specific way of drawing. And what it means is you keep your eyes on the subject and keep your pen on the paper. You never lift your pen from the paper. The reason for that is because as soon as you lift your pen from the paper, the brain becomes really overwhelmed with an urge to look at the work and figure out where to put that pen down again. And as soon as you kind of break the seal of looking at your own work, here comes judgment. And judgment interferes with our ability to really be creative in an unfettered way. So with a blind contour, what you do as you're looking, it's 60 to 120 seconds. As you're looking at your subject, your pen stays on the paper and you just keep on drawing. It's one line. Yeah, it's going to be a mess. The point is to give yourself permission to make whatever mess your creative mind is capable of making. Get you past that judgment resistance that's preventing you from leaning into creative endeavors. And then, yep, you're going to share yours. They're going to share theirs. You're going to have this exchange. And share the experience, right? Have a conversation about it. How did it make you feel? Really like own the experience of resistance, if that was present in you. Discuss through that. Did you guys have a laugh about your apologies or how goofy your drawings were? Make it an exchange to bring that common experience out into the open and see that that sort of common human element of resistance exists in you and in them. And then have that like, okay, that's there, but we still managed to move through it experience. This is, like I said, one of thousands, literally thousands of exercises that you can use in a business setting. Bring a team together, sit them down, half an hour every Friday, draw one of these creativity exercises out of a hat. And on a regular basis, you take time to build the creative capacities of your team by selecting exercises like this. We'll have resources for you in the links in the description afterwards that you can look on the internet to find so many exercises. But again, if you want to invest in creativity, that means taking the time to bring your team together to undertake creativity building exercises, if that makes sense. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Colt. Absolutely. The inner critic is something we're all familiar with. We sometimes call it the voice in our head.
Yes.
The voice in our head, or the voice of judgment, or self-talk is another expression. And why blind contour is so important as an exercise is because often when we're in an ideation setting of work, in a business meeting, whatever, where we need to look, in a sense, outside of the box. And it's important to remember that that creativity created the box in the first place. In fact, creativity is responsible for all the boxes. But anyway,
Yeah.
the key thing here is that often when we're in important ideation sessions at work, that inner critic can easily jump in and block us from contributing or collaborating. And what Colt has taken us through here is a really powerful exercise. It's one, as he said, it's one of many. So let's go on to a few more, shall we?
Well, let's do that. So actually, as much as I would love to cover 1,000 creativity building exercises, I think the best we can do in the amount of time that we have is to inform people that there are countless resources. One of my favorite is a book from the Stanford D School called Creative Exercises for Curious People. But knowing that, I think we need to move to the next stage here, Brian, because we need to put the rubber on the road for these folks. And it's knowing now what creativity is, how it works, and that there are countless ways to build creativity. I think that the next place we need to get to is helping them understand how do they practically apply creativity in standard business processes. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Colt. Yeah, absolutely. So we basically put these into two categories. These are solo processes. In other words, processes in standard business situations that individuals deal with or work on, and then group. And you can look through this list here. Some of them are common. For example, ideating. And you can look on the solo side, of course, when you're executing a task, drafting some communication, developing some concepts, etc. And presentation building is a very important, obviously, solo process. And that's very, very widespread in business. And then obviously the group side, you've got all those important sort of meeting-based team buildings and information sharing and so on. So we're going to look at some of these, just a couple of examples to give you a taste of how you can apply creativity to standard business processes.
Yeah, hopefully everybody sees this, regardless of industry that they're operating in. Everybody sees these two lists and goes, yep, that's pretty much how we spend our day. And so the question becomes, well, okay, if these are the standard exercises of our jobs, where are the opportunities to inject creativity such that we can receive the benefits that we talked about at the top of the hour here? So, oh, here we go again. StreamYard taking liberties with my margins, but okay. This is the idea that we wanted to convey to you. Again, just selecting a very small subset from the total number of ways that are available to businesses to bring in creative processes into their standard business activities. And this is very different from, okay, guys, let's pause this meeting where we're aiming to this goal and do a creative exercise. This is the way that you're going to achieve the goal that you set about for that meeting or for that hour of work that you're undertaking in those standard business processes. This is the approach to delivering the work, not an exercise that's fun and interesting to build creativity, but actually the way that you're going to produce the work. So this is a list of 31 creative business process enhancements. Again, you can look up any of these, screenshot it if you'd like. There's resources that we'll have for you in the links, but we're actually going to unpack a couple of these. Brian's going to walk you through literally how to take these processes and bring them into your standard business activities.
Yeah, thanks, Colt. So found object is one of our favorites, and you can perform this individually and also in a group. Found object is a very interesting process. So when to use it? So we use the example, let's say, of presentation building. You're building a presentation. And the benefits of doing this particular exercise is going to enhance your ideation and your collaboration. And you can see the strengths that are being applied there from our original list. Getting the brain fully engaged, being playful, extremely important part of unpacking or unlocking your creativity, question forming, divergent thinking, emotional awareness, which we touched on in the model, and making connections. So we've used the example here of a leaf. So let's say, for example, moving to the next slide, let's say you're reflecting on your task, you're building a presentation. So this is the steps. In your office or your home, just go and find an object that you're attracted to for no particular reason. We're using the leaf here, okay? And what you do here is you place the object on your desk and you make notes. So you're stepping aside from your presentation and now looking at your object. And the first step is to describe it in terms of shape, size, dimension, symmetry, feel, etc. That's giving you a kind of an observable visual download of what you're seeing in this leaf. And then go to its purpose. What's the purpose of a leaf? What function does it perform? What is it part of? What is its lifetime of use? How does it contribute to its ecosystem? And then look at attraction. There are 3 parts here. What attracted you to this object? How does it make you feel when you pick it up? And look at it from different perspectives. So now let's unpack this and go a little deeper. And these are the 2 steps. If we can, well, the slide's a little bit kooky here, but basically you then reference back to your presentation and ask yourself these questions. How could I make my presentation symmetrical? For example, looking at the leaf. What is the shape and central spine of my presentation? How many sections should it have to connect to that central spine? Maybe 5 to 7. And what's the point or sharp end of my presentation? How can I make it shine? What is at its heart, right? So that you're now referencing that description of the leaf back into your presentation, looking at purpose then. What is the purpose of my presentation, right? And how does this product fit into our product ecosystem? In what ways will it give oxygen to the market? And how maybe we could make it more sustainable? And what is its lifetime? So now you're referencing that ideation back into your presentation. And then, of course, the attractive side. What if maybe I could make my presentation more green? What's its natural style color? In what ways could I make it attractive to the green market, etc.? So then the last step, as you can see at the bottom of the slide here, you then basically draft out your presentation using that ideation from found object and using your insights, and you craft your presentation and then give it to a few trusted colleagues, get their feedback, refine and create, and you've got your final presentation. So this is like taking a step out of your task and then using this connective power of the brain and the cognitive sense of the mind to then ideate and then cross connect. And I want to just make one important point here. This is also the theme of what we call biomimicry, where you're taking some biology, all right, in the natural world and looking to see how that could inform what you do in your business. And one last point, one of the great heroes of ours is Leonardo da Vinci, one of the pioneers of radical thinking and one of the pioneers of the Renaissance. And he used techniques like this a lot because he was a naturally very observant individual and in fact decried formal education, but just used his power observation to make those cross connects. And that was responsible for something like, we have I think 20,000 pages of his notes detailing so many inventions. So that's a great example. Let's go to another one, shall we?
Well, before you move on, Brian, I just wanted to comment. I have found this to be an enormously beneficial exercise. Really a gate opening process when I'm in any kind of creation exercise, any kind of creation deliverable, whether it's building a presentation, writing a brief, communicating in an email even. If I take a moment to interact with and contemplate an object that I have access to, and it could really be anything. Every object has properties and principles and aspects to it that cause my mind to think about things in a different way. I've having undertaken this exercise multiple times now, my desk has like lots of funny objects all around it because I find that they're all inspirations to me. So it's funny how it would seem like, well, if I'm going to take 5 minutes not building this presentation, aren't I just going to be 5 minutes behind building this presentation when I'm done with this? The answer is no. You're going to be way ahead of the game. The perspectives that contemplating found objects has brought me in many creative processes have been phenomenal. And I've only ever found a great benefit from bringing this process into my standard productivity, in work. Here's your next one.
Okay, then. So Edward de Bono, some of you may have heard of him, somebody that we've actually co-presented with in the past. very famous for lateral thinking. Well, he developed this amazing application for creativity known as the 6 hats. And the big benefit of this, as we've outlined here, is that it helps groups, now looking at groups now, to plan and think in a detailed, coherent way and succeed more effectively. So it's a very collaborative process, and the kit or equipment you want is 6 colored hats if you can afford them. Great to wear, by the way, and or you can use armbands or ribbons. So let's look at the actual process now. So these are the 6 hats, and we put this into a grid for you. What you'll see in that first line there, role and focus. So these are different foci of the person wearing this particular color hat, the conductor's hat. And the conductor's hat is really, its real benefit here is looking at the big picture, considering all the factors. And of course, we're engaging the full brain in a collaborative sense. And then you can see the next one here, the white hat. That's the factual hat. So that's that part of our thinking, and the person wearing that hat. This is about gathering information, getting insights, and most importantly, setting key priorities. And priorities are very important because they give you the sort of criteria that you can then ultimately select your ideation from, or select your ideas. And then you see the red hat here, the hat of the heart. That's more about feelings and emotions. So you can see here how it's the 6 hats is a great example of how the RAD model actually works. Looking at things like emotions. The judge's hat number, which is the black one, and that's looking at risks, concerns, and really exercising critical judgment. So it's kind of putting the brake a little bit on the creative process. And then you get the optimist hat, which is looking at the benefits, what's the added value from an idea. And then finally, the creative hat, the green one, and that's really focusing on the range of ideas and possible ways forward. So if we move to the next slide. So when to use. So these are examples of applying 6 hats, again, to the standard business processes that we use on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And you can see that on the left side, when to use this particular creative strategy, creating initial ideas, choosing between alternatives, identifying solutions, feedback, strategic planning, process involvement, etc., performance reviews, solving problems. So all of these are standard, again, business processes. And just very briefly, if you look at the creating initial ideas, you'll see the sequence of hats there from blue to white to green to blue. And the blue, again, looking at the big picture. So the person wearing the blue hat would really be responsible for giving that big picture, considering all the aspects that need to be considered. And then you move to the white hat, and that again is the information gathering. Very important. What are our priorities here? So that's the role of the person wearing the white hat. The green hat, of course, is then looking at the range of ideas, all the possible ways we can go forward. So the person wearing that hat then is, that's their role and focus. And then you return to the blue to, again, consider the big picture. So that's a very quick and what we call quick and dirty process. And you know what's so sweet about 6 hats, which we've used with groups and teams? The great thing is that no one is stuck in a particular role. Okay. So if you're wearing the blue hat today, guess what? You may get to choose the white hat or the green hat or the red or the blue or the black. And often what we do with groups is we actually put a ball together and we have them pick out a piece of paper so that that will have what hat they're going to wear. So everyone gets the experience of working with multiple hats, all the hats, the 6 hats. And what that does, it builds not just only collaboration, but it gives you that kind of agility to be able to think not only in a particular hat or from a hat perspective, but you begin to appreciate, oh my God, I was wearing the green hat yesterday. Now I'm wearing the white hat today. I can now appreciate what the green hat is doing. So this is a very powerful collaborative tool, and it's something we love, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do like this exercise, and I've used it in meeting settings that are non-specific meeting settings, right? Where you're getting together, like you could use it for a quarterly update, etc., or you're trying to create a new product line, whatever it might be. There's just something powerful that happens when you have a sense of being assigned a role beyond the title that you're carrying into that meeting. Like, this is a perspective that I can take on my way into this meeting that will inform how I communicate, even how I listen gets informed by the hat that I'm wearing here. And it just becomes a powerful orienter for the way that I can contribute to this meeting. And it's not intended to constrain. It's intended to expand. It's intended to expand how it is that you can show up, participate in, communicate in, listen to, et cetera, in a meeting. And I've only ever found it to be beneficial to apply these kinds of lenses to the folks who are participating in a meeting. Now, if you have more than the number of hats in a meeting, that's fine. Have multiple hats that are green and white and red, et cetera. So if you've got a 10-person meeting, it shouldn't be a problem. Have 10 hats, have a dozen, whatever, and just, reach in and pull out whatever it is. Have a index card attached to it so you know the role and kind of what it is that you're trying to bring into that meeting. But again, it's just been a really powerful exercise that I've seen, and I'm glad that Brian was able to share this one with you guys. So, yeah, like we said, the list of the list of ways to apply creativity into standard business processes is enormous. We looked at found object, which I think is a phenomenal way to enhance your thinking as you are in a standard business process, and 6 hats, again, your perspective shifting, very powerful. Hundreds more. Here we are in a short webinar, alas. So what we're going to do next is I just want to quickly talk about, as we looked at the very beginning, we have this sense of the power of creativity and what it can help businesses to achieve in terms of, increasing profits, shareholder return, being disruptive in the marketplace, protecting you against disruptors, all these benefits. And I think it's important to give business leaders at least some kind of a tool or mechanism to say, well, are we creative or not? How are we doing? Brian and I, we have a much richer, deeper assessment that we undertake when a business engages us to help them increase their creative capacities and apply creativity. This is really just a sampling, but it's still instructive, right? You can see in this set of questions that there are ways to identify your strengths and weaknesses relative to how creativity is either thriving or suffering inside your organization. And I would say if you just kind of glance down this list and you find that you're ranking very highly, that's a super good sign. You're doing really well to foster creativity in your organization. You might actually be doing well in 2 or 3 of these, but very poorly in others. And it's that combination of environment, culture, facilitation, process, exercises, and then application that make it possible for creativity to really thrive. So look for where your weak points may be, because that bottleneck, even if you have 9s or 10s happening in certain areas, you can end up ultimately not really being able to take advantage of creativity in your organization because of bottlenecks that might exist.
Yeah, we often, if I can add to that, Colt, we often talk about the strength of a chain is in its weakest link.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So this is the whole point. And of course, we understand very thoroughly in business that you can only solve, quote, a problem when you can measure it and understand it. And this is what our assessments are about. We have assessments for not only individuals, if you're an individual executive or manager in your company, but we also have team assessments, and we have whole company assessments. So we have the whole range here. And in a couple of slides, we're going to sort of give you another insight into that. So maybe we could move forward.
Totally right. So again, this is the regret of trying to pack what you can into a 45-minute webinar. Doesn't allow for us to cover a tremendous amount of ground. But what we hoped to have done in these minutes that you've spent with us is to really reveal what is possible in terms of applying creativity in a business context. And our approach to it being these 3 phases, really taking the mystery off creativity, right? That it's not just something, oh, well, if I was lucky enough to be born with it. It is absolutely something that everyone can develop. Just like athleticism, you can build creative capacities. And when you understand the mechanism of creativity between the conscious and the unconscious, and how to set up the unconscious to succeed in bringing you ideas, and then from a conscious space, now how do I apply and leverage these ideas? Once you understand those mechanisms, you're in a much stronger place to succeed with creativity. Then that second phase, now that we understand it, how do we go to the gym and build it, so to speak, right? What are the exercises that we can undertake with our team? If you want to invest in it every day, invest in it every day. Take 20 minutes every day with your team and build your creativity. Draw an exercise out of a bowl and go for it. It's fun. It's powerful. It works. You want to do it once a week, once a month, once a quarter. You're making the investment in building the creative capacities of your team when you choose to take that time. And then number 3, phase 3, applying that creativity. Just like the found object, just like 6 hats. These are things that you're going to do while you're in the process of your normal business routines. Things that enhance the outcomes of your normal business routines and infuse creativity, open up those creative capacities for risk taking, for perspective shifting, for all the strengths that we talked about are the component elements of creativity. These are the 3 phases. So let's just move on to our offerings here.
Yeah. By the way, often one of the myths about creativity, and I think Colt was touching on this, is that it's often thought of as only for the gifted few, right? Or people whose job it is, quote, to be creative, head of marketing, so whatever it may be in your business. What we know from our work with numerous companies, including many Fortune 100 companies, is this, that creativity is the province of all of your people in your company. And the key thing about this is we can use creativity for incremental change, improving what we do. But also we can use creativity to make radical step outs. And it's really that whole range, I think, that we've been exploring here. So here are the sort of the key areas that we offer to you in your business. Creative facilitation, which is a very important part. We'll work with your compelling challenges. Give us a brief, and we'll work on that brief. We'll unpack it with you, and then we'll come and do something really powerful so you can achieve some breakthroughs. It's one of our standard approaches for the RAD, creative. And then keynotes and presentations. I hope you've got a sense of how we are in this webinar, but one of the things Colt and I love is presenting to groups. And we create transformative experiences, highly motivational and engaging and entertaining experiences for your company offsites and retreats. Again, once we have a theme, you give us a brief, we'll put something really powerful together. The assessments we've already talked about, creativity readiness assessments. That's really about building your culture, your innovation culture. And then the team training seminars. This is kind of important because as we've unpacked and developed over the course of the webinar, learning how to be more collaborative in your creativity is super important. So we often we're brought in to work with specific teams, and teams we've worked with in IBM, with DuPont, with Shell International Petroleum, Ensemble Health Partners, most business sectors we've worked in. And then finally, train the trainer. And this is super important. You may, in your business, want to empower your own teams and be able to facilitate yourself. It's like a do-it-yourself. Well, we can give you those skill sets. And this is very kind of central to, again, really empowering creativity. So to be agile and innovative, we'll teach you the skill sets, and that's a wonderful program that we offer.
So before we go to this last slide here, or second to last slide rather, I just wanted to open it up. I know we have people who are watching with us live. Really appreciate you guys being here. We on purpose tried to contain the value that we're trying to deliver here inside 45 minutes to allow actually time for questions, to really engage with the audience. Any questions that you have about building creativity, challenges that you've met in creativity, etc., ways that you'd like to develop your creativity personally. I mean, the floor is really open. We're excited to be able to respond to questions that you might have. Go ahead and add them into whether you're looking at this webinar through LinkedIn or you've joined us on YouTube. As long as StreamYard is working the way I think it's supposed to, we should be able to see your questions come through in the live stream on our side. So we invite you to draft those questions up as we take a look at these last couple of slides. Brian, do you want to walk us through this one real quick?
Yeah, we could do this together probably. Yeah, and everybody do drop some notes and questions into your chat box there. That would be great. Yeah, so coming back again, this is the three-stage process we have when we're engaging with you, from discovery, design, and delivering the programs. And this applies to, again, those 6 categories we looked at in the previous slide. In terms of our preparation, one of the most important things is the very beginning, getting to know you, your team, your company, and your needs.
Yeah.
And we actually pride ourselves in doing very thorough work in that area. We'll interview with you, we'll come and meet with you, we'll get a sense of what it is that you're really looking to achieve, and then we unpack the brief with you, and we'll make sure that what we design in whatever program we're looking at with you, that brief is solid and strong, so that you know that you have confidence that what we're going to do is something spectacular for you.
Yeah.
And then we prototype the program. All right, so we'll design, whether it's the presentation, whether it's a special keynote, whether it's train the trainer, working with a particular team that you have, we'll prototype that program, and we'll help you take a look at it so that you can give your input. So, we're not just sages on the stage, we're guys on the side, as they say. So once we have that back and forth with you, we'll finalize the content, the flow, make sure you're happy with it. And then, of course, we'll come and deliver the program. And a key part of that is not just getting the right kind of mindset for the program that will be powerful for you, but also the setting. So we like to set up the space, right? This is very important. And we use not only great slideshows, but we use mixed media, we use music. And one thing I think Colt and I are really keen on, we make our work highly interactive. And that includes major keynotes. So we've worked with audiences from 20 up to 1,000. I think our biggest one was 3,000. And we have special processes we can engage with everybody, even in that kind of numbers. So whether it's small or big, that's just an example there. So yeah, getting the on-site prep and then delivering the program. And then finally getting feedback and follow through, so that we can then look back with you to see how effective our program was, and if you've met your desired outcomes. And that's our commitment to you. And that's how we engage.
Right on. Thank you for that, Brian. So I will just kind of put a sum up on this here. Really hoping that this walk through, super accelerated walk through the high levels of how creativity can be brought into business teams to enhance business outcomes has lit you up in some valuable ways, that you're excited about the possibility of increasing the creative capabilities of either yourself personally, your own business team, or your company kind of writ large. That's great, because that's exactly what we're aiming to foster in the world, which is a transition to business that is powered by creativity. We believe in creativity being, in our opinion, the most powerful skill to develop for success in the modern day, in this very disruptive sort of tidal wave of business that we live in now. And if you've been inspired, I think that's phenomenal. That's a mark of success for us. If you have the sense that you want to make a once a week or once a month experience with your business teams and take on an exercise and go look for some sources of different exercises that you can do, that's a big win for us as well. We're excited that those are directions that you want to take. If you run into any obstacles or challenges along the way, that's what we're here for. Really love to just talk with you guys, understand what it is that you're dealing with. We invite you to reach out. This is my personal email address. If you want to contact me, I invite you to do so. And this QR code, if you want to scan it with your phone, opens up a quick dialogue for you to set up a 30-minute discovery call with us. So if you want to talk about the business challenges that you're dealing with, or if you're just excited to bring creativity into your company and you want some support from us, well, that's what we do. So we'd be happy to talk with you. Anything you want to add, Brian?
I don't think so. Just really, this is this whole topic, this whole subject is it's really the juice that powers our work in the Rad Creative.
Yeah.
And getting that juice really enlivened. We love doing this work.
It's true.
And the great thing is working with our clients. They get to fall in love with this work as well.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest motivator. You know, when we look at a lot of the research on the motivation factors and hygiene factors, the Hertzberg work in companies, one of the key motivators is where people feel not only valued, but their ideas and their creativity are actually respected and used. So this is beyond the simple ideas box, you know, which we're all kind of yawning about sometimes. The main thing is that what we've covered with you today is really the mechanics. It's the operating system of creativity. And you know, from the perspective of our research into cognitive and neuroscience, one important thing to remember is your mind is your personal virtual reality engine. Right? Everything we create comes from thought, and the creative aspect of thought is something which is super important, not just for motivation at work, but for securing your future.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, want to give you guys a big thank you. Thank you for joining us live. And for anyone who's listening to it recorded, really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I hope you're excited about making creativity a focus for your companies, for yourself, for your success. Thank you for joining us. We hope to hear from you soon.
Yeah, get in touch. We'll be speaking with you soon. Thanks again.